Suchata, earlier, you were, when we were out in the kitchen there, you were talking about the Danish politics, and if I had anything to say about that something new is happening in Danish politics, right? And I'm sure everybody sitting here has already heard about this. You've probably been watching it a bit on the TV, where it has been introduced, I don't know if it's, I think it's once a week in the Danish Parliament, that all the politicians can fire questions at the Prime Minister. You've seen it, eh? Yes. You also saw Egon, yeah. And I was watching the TV when this was being introduced last week, and I saw them making an interview with a guy from the British House of Commons, as it's called. They'd invited him over to Denmark. I think he's like the one who controls the sessions in the House of Commons. And he'd been invited to Denmark to teach people how to debate in the Danish Parliament. I couldn't believe it when I saw this guy being interviewed. Because whenever I see this circus, as I call it, from the British House of Commons, what I see there is like this bunch of overgrown schoolboys and school kids, you know, with their ties tight around their necks, debating and screaming and shouting, and I mean, it's just a total mess. And now this guy is being sent over to Denmark to teach us how to do the same. And I was very happy to hear that in the Danish Parliament, we're not going to allow any booing and shouting. People still have to behave themselves, more or less. But, you know, I've always had an interest in politics. And one of the things I've often said, and maybe I've been a bit naive, but I always felt that not only Denmark, but the whole of Scandinavia maybe could help to show the way for politics in the new paradigm we're moving into. Because what I hope to see in the near future is that, you know, never mind learning how to debate and scream and shout at each other, because what do we do when we behave like this? We still have us against them. It's still a battle. I'm looking forward to the time here in Scandinavia when enough politicians will understand that maybe we need to move beyond party politics. Maybe the time of having political parties is over. Why can't we just have people who are interested in good governance taking on jobs as guides, facilitators, for how we progress, how our countries develop, and how we move on together, taking collective decisions, but not these political parties. How many politicians today are really free? Because we're talking now about moving into a time of truth and freedom. These are the Aquarian values. How many politicians are free to really say what they feel and be totally honest if it goes against what their party stands for? You know, we hear this expression, there's an English expression, you have to toe the party line. You have to get into the line. In Britain they talk about whipping people into line. And I would love to see the time come. In Scandinavia, I see it as a real possibility here for some reason, where we move away from party politics and where we start moving into what I would call meritocracy. That means where those who can, they do the work. And you know, you might be in a fantastic phase in your life when you're really, there's so much creativity coming through you. You have great visions for how we move forward together. And maybe you can play a big role in what used to be the political scene for several years. And then suddenly things change for you. The energy changes. And that's not the focus. Maybe you need a few years, you know, going more deeply within yourself. Maybe you need 6 months in silence, some meditation, and then what you do is you gracefully step down from the scene where you were playing out your role, and somebody else steps in. You understand? And this is really what I'm seeing as a potential. So this guy coming over from the British House of Commons to teach us how to behave in the Parliament, I see as a step totally in the wrong direction. I really do not want to see Scandinavia moving closer and closer in the direction of Britain and the United States. I would like to see Britain, the United States, and many other countries moving in the direction of what I see as the potential in Scandinavia. And we don't need more shouting and screaming in Parliament. What we need is more periods of silence. You know, that people can stand up and express something. And then when people just sit with that for a little while and have a look at it, how do I feel about this? Maybe that was a good idea she or he came with. Let me just take a look at this. It's time for us to let go of all our smart ways of being. Clever words, truth-twisting, eloquent lawyers. We need a much deeper level of being, of communication and authenticity. We need spaces between the words. So there's time to reflect and to stay in contact with the space between the noise, where we can realize that we are all one. We don't need so-called new systems where we're still fighting each other. If you want more yelling and shouting, just go to a football match. Hey? Yeah. We need more silence, space. We need a deeper level of being, so that the deepest, most precious we all have within us, we all have to offer, is allowed to come to the surface. So, thank you all. Namaste.